So our service is a specialist legal service for people who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, and that's in the state of Victoria, which is one of the 6 states of Australia. We see about 1,000 clients a year in soup kitchens, shelters and welfare agencies, and we help them with their legal issues. And from that we see real trends emerging about the kinds of legal issues and human rights issues that impact on people who are homeless in our community. The key issue for our clients is the use of fines to punish low-level criminal behaviour or antisocial behaviour. Almost a third of the clients that we see come to see us because they have fines that they can't afford to pay, and probably that they shouldn't have been given in the first place because it was their poverty or their homelessness or other forms of structural inequality or disadvantage that led to them receiving fines in the first place. We're fortunate that our legal system recognises some of those forms of disadvantage and makes allowance for them in dealing with the fines and processing the fines. But that system is far from perfect, and we continue to agitate for change to ensure that our clients aren't disproportionately and unfairly affected by the fine system. One of the other key issues that we're concentrating on at the moment is a review of the human rights legislation in Victoria. We've only had statutory protection for human rights in Victoria for 4 years, and that is largely based on the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and so there's no economic, social or cultural rights included. It's based on the UK model, and so uses the dialogical framework to encourage dialogue between the community and the different arms of government. Having been in place for 4 years, it's now time to review that legislation, and so we're assisting our clients to put their voice forward to show that their human rights are breached often, and that they need stronger protections within our state. So there are a couple of the key projects that we're working on. Our clients use public spaces by necessity. Unlike you or I, they don't have a home in which they can undertake the usual activities that people would undertake in their home. And so when they have their friends over for a drink, they do that in a park or they do it in a train station. When they need to sleep, they might do that again in a park or on a train. Access to facilities like showers and toilets is very difficult when you're homeless, and so again there might be ordinary actions that ordinary people take in their homes. Our clients are forced to do in public spaces. There also, and I think this is a worldwide trend, seems to be a growing intolerance of so-called antisocial behaviour, and so the policy response to some of those antisocial behaviours, as they're called by government and policymakers, is to criminalise that behaviour. And that's a growing trend, and we're certainly seeing that in Victoria. Within the last 18 months, we've had the introduction of several new laws that have effectively criminalised homelessness and poverty. And they're laws including move-on powers, so giving police the power to move people on from public spaces. The powers like random search powers, where there's no longer a need for police officers to have a reasonable suspicion that a person has a contraband item on them, so has a weapon, has drugs or something. If a person is in a certain area, they can just be searched at random. Some new laws around being drunk in public and the capacity to be not only locked up while you're drunk, but given a fine as you leave the cell. So this growing trend of criminalising poverty and homelessness is certainly something that we're acutely aware of in our community. Some of the key concerns that I have about the criminalisation or penalisation of poverty is that it's a growing trend and it's a growing response amongst governments and policymakers to criminalise behaviour that arises because somebody is experiencing extreme poverty, or chronic poverty, or ongoing poverty. This is a growing trend, I think, worldwide, but it's something that is certainly becoming very clear in our community. Also, the effective separation of the people who have and the people who don't have is becoming really clear in the way that our criminal justice system is working or not working. And so I think it's really important that policymakers understand that there are criminal behaviours that occur because people don't have access to their basic needs and to an adequate standard of living, to adequate housing, to appropriate medical services or other support services. Without that support, there are going to be behaviours that are going to be perceived as antisocial, and in the current environment they're going to be criminalised. Our government's responses in this area seem to be addressing the consequences and not the causes of this type of behaviour. For organisations like mine, we often get far too focused on achieving justice for individuals, and so assisting one particular client with one particular criminal charge or one particular dispute that they have, without taking the time to look at the big picture. And often we think of the big picture as being changing one particular law in one particular jurisdiction. There's a picture that's even bigger again, that's the global human rights questions that flow out of these types of issues of criminalising poverty. And so being able to step back from individual casework to policy settings within my community to global human rights and social policy settings is a really important development in assisting governments and policymakers to address poverty in a way that's not punishing the consequences, but that is thinking about the causes and providing support to people where they need it before they commit these types of offences. And so I'm really excited about being involved in this project and being able to take that really global view through a human rights lens. It's something that we see every day with the people who